and I think it's going very well. But today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal. I could have made a deal for Ukraine that would have given them almost all of the land, everything, almost all of the land, and no people would have been killed, and no city would have been demolished, and not one dome would have been knocked down. But they chose not to do it that way. And President Biden, in all fairness, he doesn't have a clue. What he was so bad for.
Ukraine, the victim of Russian aggression, has been brutally demonized, made to take the blame as an equal participant in the war. If you're walking down the street and someone attacks you with the intent of hurting you and taking everything you own, are you equally to blame for the violence that ensues if you aggressively defend yourself? Welcome to the Weekly Brew. I'm your host, Chico Moya.
Do you expect Ukraine?
Say it, what?
Do you view Ukraine as an equal member of this peace process?
It's an interesting question. I think they have to make peace. Their people are being killed, and I think they have to make peace.
We will continue.
I said that was not a good war to go into, and I think they have to make peace. That's what I think.
I don't know what's happening with this American administration. Their view on Israel is solid. I like some of the common sense policies they're implementing, getting rid of DEI, being unambiguous with sex and gender, and pushing back on some of the social mental rot that people call woke. That stuff is cool. But when it comes to Ukraine, America's moral compass is utterly broken. I'm mostly talking about the rhetoric towards Ukraine. It's truly a David and Goliath story. Russia was supposed to steamroll Ukraine and take what it wanted. It's been 3 years now. Hundreds of thousands have died on both sides. Europe has weaned itself off cheap Russian gas, and Russia is weaker than it's been in a long time. I mean, we write stories and watch movies about these kinds of heroic acts. It seems so un-American to side with the Goliath in the story. I actually understand America not wanting to be as involved. The thing that I criticize most is their deal-making process. It has me scratching my head, I'm not gonna lie. Oh, watch this clip.
We want, like you, a sovereign and prosperous Ukraine. But we must start by recognizing that returning to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders is an unrealistic objective. Chasing this illusionary goal will only prolong the war and cause more suffering. The United States does not believe that NATO membership for Ukraine is a realistic outcome of a negotiated settlement. Instead, any security guarantee must be backed by capable European and non-European troops. If these troops are deployed as peacekeepers to Ukraine at any point, they should be deployed as part of a non-NATO mission, and they should not be covered under Article 5. As part of any security guarantee, there will not be U.S. troops deployed to Ukraine.
This must be the worst deal-making process ever. How can the U.S. publicly declare all the things it will not do before even sitting down with Putin? That just sets him at ease. Unless Donald Trump is playing some kind of 4D chess, I won't lie, I'm pretty baffled. Ultimately, the real weight of the situation in Ukraine should not have to be decided by the US. It's the EU that has truly dropped the ball. Europe has been a victim of Russian imperialism from the 1700s all the way to the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. And even today, Europe has been on the receiving end of Russian aggression for centuries. The Tsarist regime ended in 1917. A few short years later, the Soviet Union was born. After its collapse, modern-day Russia emerged, but it still harbors the same thirst for power and dominance. History has proven that any country that joins NATO will not be invaded and has a chance of prospering as an independent nation. For the first time in hundreds of years, there was hope. Without NATO, Russia can reach out its hand and take what it wants whenever it wants. It has always done this. Instead of taking the threat seriously, even after the Ukraine invasion of 2014, NATO and the EU got fat and lazy, apart from a couple of countries. They got lazy, believing the US, being part of NATO, would rescue them if things went south. Even though I don't like the current administration's rhetoric around Russia, the point still stands. The EU should be able and capable of defending itself from the ever-looming threat of Russia. Ukraine has done what seemed impossible. Russia thought this was going to be a walk in the park, but it's bleeding. This is a bit of a wake-up call. I'm hopeful that something is brewing in the background. A ton of meetings have been taking place between different European leaders and Zelensky. I want to believe that it's not all talk, that something will be done. I think Europe has started to truly understand that it cannot rely on the US. The US is itself pivoting its attention to China instead. And by the way, if you are enjoying this video and you're finding some value in my perspective, consider liking and subscribing. It really helps. Online, I'm constantly shocked at how much some people seem to side with Russia, despite the fact that it's clearly the aggressor and there are no good excuses for what it's currently doing. People try and put the blame on NATO, which is absolute garbage. It's not so much that NATO is moving east forcefully, as some might want you to think. It's the East that is moving west to flee Russian aggression and hopefully find a little bit of peace with a chance of prospering. Both Finland and Sweden have now joined NATO because Russia has, time and again, proven itself to be a terrible partner for peace. I used to think that Russian propaganda was a made-up thing to explain things you don't like. I used to roll my eyes because it seemed like it was blamed for everything. Well, it turns out that's probably true. Before I decided to learn about the war and a bit of the history, I was strangely more sympathetic towards Russia. How is that possible? I knew nothing. It's like a current that gradually sweeps you away without you even noticing. Then I started looking into it. I'm appalled that my mind ever swayed in Russia's direction. It's insane. Watch this short exchange.
It's Russia that's killing people. If Russia stopped fighting, if Russia wanted to end the war, if Russia stopped fighting, Russia could just stop fighting. There wouldn't be a war. No one would be killed.
And that would be
great.
Our
job done.
Yeah,
well, why doesn't the West take that to Russia?
Ultimately, maybe that's what the negotiations are.
Which part of Britain would you give away if we were invaded and you wanted to negotiate peace?
None at all.
Oh, so we wouldn't give away any of Britain.
But
it's okay to give away a bit of Ukraine.
Hang on, it's not us giving it away, Julia. Right? It's Ukraine, and Ukraine
doesn't want to give it away.
Of course it doesn't. But ultimately, as everybody said, it is Zelensky's decision. But ultimately, we've got to stop killing people.
If we were invaded and our close allies in NATO, like the United States, basically supported us for a bit, but gave us just enough support so we could actually not lose, but we'd not enough to win. Yeah. And after 3 years, whoever was president of the United States said,
from which to try and negotiate a solution.
So at which point Donald Trump, let me finish, says, oh, well, we're going to have a negotiation, but we're going to let the Russians, whoever invaded us, keep part of territory. Just clarify. Just how much of British territory would you be willing to give away in those negotiations?
On Northern Ireland, chap. Ultimately, in Northern Ireland, there was a negotiation to stop the killing. It involved horrendous compromises that lots of people didn't want to make.
We didn't give away territory.
We stopped killing people.
We didn't give away territory.
That's also correct.
We didn't give away territory to invading force. That's a ridiculous analogy.
No, it's a completely valid analogy.
Sorry, who invaded Northern Ireland?
Wars stop when people stop killing people.
No, wars stop when one side is defeated.
Look.
Sorry, have you heard of the Second World War?
Yes.
Did we negotiate the ending of the Second World War?
Have you heard of there are lots of other wars where ultimately people negotiate a peace. Otherwise, you just carry on. How long are we going to carry on with this?
Falklands.
Yeah, Falklands we won.
Oh, yeah. We didn't just negotiate with Argentina and give them some of the Falklands.
No, but there's
Why
plenty
not?
of other...
Why not? That would have stopped the war, Richard. Why not?
Look, ultimately, we won that war, but there are other wars where it's a negotiated settlement.
Because it's not our problem. Except it will be our problem when Vladimir Putin thinks he can take any territory of any country in Europe that he darn well pleases.
And that's why the negotiation is about what is the strength of what is put in place to stop him going any further. That's why I've always said...
What's going to stop him going any further? We've just said you can take Crimea, you can take the Donbass.
That's the whole point of the negotiation. Is Ukraine going to join NATO and therefore benefit from the Article 4? Well, that's the point of the negotiation.
Well, there's no negotiation, is it? Is there? There's no negotiation. The Secretary of State
clearly
already
don't understand how President Trump works. He starts out in one position. That doesn't mean that's where he settles. The whole point of a negotiation, you set out positions and then you work out where you're going to finish.
You know what you don't do in a negotiation? You set out a position where you've given the other side everything that they want.
And that's not what I suspect.
It's literally what they've done in the last 24 hours.
I completely disagree.
I just thought Reform cared about national borders.
We do absolutely care about national borders and sovereignty.
Not all of them. Okay.
But equally, we don't want to carry on killing people. We're not killing people. But ultimately, somehow, the war has got to stop. It's gone on for 3 years. How long do we keep it going? A decade? 2 decades?
How long would you fight for this country?
Until I'm dead.
Well, exactly. That's what the Ukrainian people would ideally do if they were given support.
But
that
actually,
war could have been won a long time ago if we'd given support.
Yeah, but there are lots of Ukrainian people who would like to find a way to end this war, including the president.
Let's not use up all our time on this. I'm disappointed in people who believe in national security.
I'm trying to explore ways to stop killing people.
Well, tell your big mate Donald Trump to tell his big mate Vladimir Putin to stop killing people. Then we can solve that problem like that.
I'm with Julia on this. What a weak argument. You can tell that people who espouse it don't really believe it themselves. The truth is, the war could end tomorrow if Russia just packed up and said, we're done. If they admitted that invading a sovereign nation was wrong, that the war crimes they committed were wrong, and instead focused on building up their country economically, the war could be over. Instead of putting pressure on Russia, people tell Ukraine to just give up. Give up any hope of an independent future. There's no hope. It's a lot easier to put the blame on the victim who, though not defeated, is on their back foot. Because if you tell the aggressor to back off and they say no, what do you do about it? And I think a lot of people don't want to have to do something about it. But hopefully the EU does something about it. But we will see. Only time will tell. Thanks for watching. Once again, if you like this video, like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. Until next time, ciao.